Hello, Grace. I am going to be reading through your paper one on the evolution of technology and architecture. Okay, I've chosen to write about how architecture has evolved with technology. Since technology has become more prevalent in our world, companies are designing more effective softwares to use in devices that have made an impact on our world and the way it functions. Furthermore, it has helped many industries everywhere to become more efficient in their work. Strong start. I'll just point out a tiny thing, which is that you can just say software. I don't think we ever put an S on that. Although, maybe it'll occur to me later that we do, but okay. I never understood why technology did play such a big role in the architecture industry. I thought that to get more precise in detail, it was better to do it by hand and physically sketching out designs. One way I think this is because you know exactly where your work is and don't have to worry about anything getting deleted or if you lose your connection to the internet. Although I do understand the positives with the use of technology. One reason I think it can be a benefit is because people are able to be more specific with what they're designing, such as the small details such as lighting, foliage, colors, and many other factors. Yeah, I've seen some of those home renovating shows where they're able to show you. They do virtual reality sometimes. They're like, look, this is what it'll look like, and it's really cool. I think that people are able to communicate their ideas more effectively because they can be more distinct about what they are planning and communicate so the consumer can understand exactly what the architect is thinking. Yeah, I think that was what I was liking so much about the virtual reality. Okay, anything in that paragraph? I guess I'm like, should I even bother mentioning this? I don't know. Is this a big deal? I just thought, I think your point about that you won't lose your work if you use technology isn't a strong point. I mean, if you draw it on paper, you could lose it. You know, your place could burn down or whatever. You could get rained on. You could drop it. Whatever. So yeah, I think all your other points are solid, but that one I was like, I think that's a weak one that takes away from the rest of your paragraph. Okay, after doing some research on how architecture has evolved and how technology has impacted it, I found sources that go in depth talking about the benefits technology has and how it has become a big factor in the industry. In the first article, how technology is driving the industry. Okay, so I think you need to stick in there like the author talks about. Yeah, that's what you need. The author talks about how they are able to connect their data with what they are planning with their team. They're able to fix, change, basically do anything with their work on the spot with their team because the use of technology, it allows them to work all together in one design rather than having a hard copy and having to redo everything. It is all at their fingertips to work on. That sentence is too long. It's a real thing that happens. I also do with my own writing. I sit and read it out loud to myself. And when I'm kind of like running out of breath at the end of the sentence, I'm like, that's too long. And I think you'd already made your point. They were able to fix, change, basically do anything with their work on the spot. Period. All the other stuff you don't need. I see this aspect of technology as a benefit because it is nice to not have to completely restart on something that probably took a while to complete. Something I thought about is if the connection to be able to access their work isn't available one day, how are they supposed to work and discuss with people since it is all through the use of technology? That's true. Sorry, I was like, is there an extra period there? That was a little something on my screen. Haha. With that, some people prefer to work the old school way and do it all by hand because technology isn't their forte when it comes to photoshopping. Designing through a computer, even just having to stare at a computer for that long can become exhausting itself and draining. Wow, I mean, that might be the case. I don't know anyone. I mean, I do know some architects, and I don't know anyone who doesn't do it on computers, but you've researched this maybe more than I have. I know that this is just as tiring to do by hand, but to just visualize what they want to do through a screen can become difficult for some. Although Clements states, it's still a bit of a novelty, but I think But I think within 2 or 3 years, providing clients with a virtual reality experience will become the norm. Cool. I wonder what year he said that. We have him down here. When did you write this, Clements? Uh-oh. Oh, maybe you told me. I missed it. Let me go back. Clements. Okay, one of the really, yeah, you don't have that. One of the really important purposes of having a works cited at the end of your paper is that when I come to a moment like that, I'm like, oh, who's this Clements guy? What did he have to say? And I was wanting to know what year he wrote that, because he says within 2 or 3 years. Like if he said that in, 2015, then we'd be like, well, he was somewhat right. But if he said it in 2020, I'm going to be like, something to look forward to, right? So 2 issues came up there. It's a good quote, and I like it, but it needs to be clear to readers who Clements is, where Clements said that, and then I'll be able to do something. A reader can do something like check what year that he said that, because they'll go down to the bottom and be like, okay, this article is from whatever year. Okay. I find this statement interesting because it really is our new reality. With many companies outside of architecture, such as clothing outlets, are already switching to be completely online. With this information, I reconsider the thought of architecture being almost completely virtual. I love the way you are introducing your quotes and also commenting on your quotes. That's exactly what you should do. There was only one other, like this sentence: with many companies outside of architecture, such as clothing outlets, already switching to be completely online. You've like almost written a complete sentence there, but with many companies outside of architecture, such as clothing outlets. Okay, so that's like the subject of your sentence. That's what you're talking about. Companies outside of architecture is your subject, what you're talking about, are already switching to be completely online. Already are also maybe switching to be completely online. I don't know. I think you can make that clearer, because that is kind of confusing. With many companies outside of, sorry, I'm obsessed with this. With many companies outside of architecture, such as clothing outlets, another way, the way I was expecting that to be set up was, okay, with many companies outside of architecture, virtual reality is becoming the norm. And I'm saying like that's what I was expecting, because sometimes revision is just about like trying to set up your sentence in a way that is more expected, so that your reader isn't noticing how it's written, they're just noticing what you said. Okay, sorry. I feel like I am yammering on especially too much for you, but okay. In another source I found, it goes into detail about an organization they created relating, who's they? Relating to learning about all the new technology, which relates to the first article because it provides more evidence of the benefits technology has in the field of architecture. Okay, a lot of words, but what are you actually saying? In another source I found, it goes into detail about an organization maybe architects created? Period. That's all that should be in that sentence. Especially at the beginning of a new paragraph, it is really helpful for your reader to have a short, clear sentence. So we know, like, what is this paragraph about? And when it seems to be about too many different things, it can be hard for our people reading it to make the jump to the new subject. Okay, technology is becoming a driving force in the industry. And with both articles, they provided ways technology is changing for the good. And even if technology isn't the best fit, there are organizations to help those get a better understanding of what's so good about the use of technology. So what I'd like to know from this paragraph, what's this organization? How is it changing? How is technology changing it for the good? That's information that's relevant to and worthy of discussing, I think, useful to discuss. What you've said, I mean, you just kind of haven't really said anything yet. I feel like you repeated some stuff that you said up above. So yeah, give us some more specifics about how this one is different. The second article, How Technology is Changing Architecture, explains how Smart Geometry created an organization that helps discuss how all this new technology is affecting architecture. Oh, so maybe that middle paragraph is talking about this article? I don't know. I can't tell. You'll realize it. Excuse me. Explains how Smart Geometry, sorry. Personally, I'm not the best when it comes to working with technology. Aha! So that's why you're nervous. Excuse me, I see that now. I mean, it sounds like really challenging to use technology for that stuff. Affecting architecture. Okay, sorry. Personally, I'm not the okay. Blah, blah, blah. I find this article interesting because creating this type of organization can be very helpful to those who might not understand the full works of how technology is changing architecture. The organization known as Smart Geometry was created 10 years ago by 3 architects. When discussing their organization, the architects say, Smart Geometry will explore these methods and ideas in an intense 4-day workshop. I think that with this information is a great way to discover the new technology in architecture. Again, you're doing a good job of introducing your quote, having your quote, and then explaining your quote. Although this is our new reality, then will architects ever have to do anything by hand anymore, or will this workshop become a class at universities for future architects and that becomes the norm rather than going through learning and figuring out how to draw, measure, shade, and so many other factors that go into designing a plan by hand. Just to jump in on the personal note here that you've been explaining. Man, since like way back, like my little brother is 30, and when he was in high school, they were using AutoCAD and other like of these kinds of programs that they use also in architecture, from what I understand. Though obviously I'm not an expert. So I am certain that when you pursue a degree in architecture, you leave knowing a ton of stuff about all the technology that's used. So I just want to throw that in. Okay, because I'm not so worried. I think you'll be all right. In the third article, it discusses how an architect visualizes their designs or plans and how it has evolved today. In What is Architecture Visualization? Design Blends describes visualization refers to the practice of representing a new structure in a way that can be easily digested, thought of as a language. So maybe this is like a definition. Thought of as a language between the client and designer, because that's a fragment by itself, but maybe that's a definition. That's why it's set up that way. In this statement, it explains the architect is visualizing what they want to construct. They need to be able to sketch and understand everything that the client is talking about before, of course, the building process actually begins. In this statement, it explains that when architects are visualizing what they want to construct, they need to be able to sketch and understand everything a client is. They need to be able to sketch everything a client is talking about before. Okay, I think I see what you're saying there, but I think this is another place you need to pare it down somehow, because I just got lost in all the different. Maybe you could take out like before, of course, or something in there just so that the sentence is clear. More into the 20th century, when technology, sorry, checking my time, okay. When technology becomes more involved in the process of visualizing, when a client is discussing with a client, one of those I think needs to be architect, about a building, it is crucial to understand the details, colors, and everything involved to make sure the client gets what they are visualizing. Yeah, I mean, when you fix the changing one of those clients to what you meant, that should be clear. Technology in this case becomes very helpful since they are able to portray a more realistic idea of what it is they are planning or designing. This affects people outside the architecture industry because it makes it easier for them to understand more of what an architect is talking about when they are going through what they want to provide in for what they're designing. This affects people outside of architecture because it makes it easier for them to understand what an architect is talking about, period. Another sentence that can be much clearer with fewer words. If you are concerned, and I'll just look and see, like, how many pages do you have? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you have plenty of length. Take out everything you don't need. It drags down your reader's ability to understand what you're trying to get at. Yeah, I think that's the main thing we need you to do in revision. So hope that helps.